Sea level rising isn't the ocean coming for us. It's about physics changing the rules. We hear this every year. The sea level is rising. But for a few centimeters, a few meters, what this change for us? Because here the truth is that the few centimeters change everything. And because it's not only the water going higher, it's all the complex phenomena that comes with it. Today in Ocean Science, we dive into the maths and physics on the change in the coastal lines. So how we measure this move, this rise in the ocean, because this is always in movement. We have the waves, we have the tides, so we cannot just put a line into the sand and says, okay, here is the medium, and then if it starts rising, the sea level is rising. We have different methods. We can start from the gauge. These are particular devices that we have in the coastal lines on different countries, and they measure how the sea level is, so which is the height that it has from the place on land. So compare where this device is locked on this measure and make the calculation on how is moving the sea level. We have also a satellite altimetry that measure the change on the height of the ocean, and that helps to understand if it's rising or not. And this also helps to discover different phenomena or to see and understand how they move. For example, the eddies that we will talk about in a future video, but you can keep the idea that they are like tornadoes in the water, and this depending on the size that they are cycling, so the size of they are rotating, we can have lower or higher altitude on the center, and with this method we can study them. So in numbers from 1993 we measure a change on 10 centimeters, and this is maybe not too much on the entire ocean, but the thing is this rise is accelerating, so it became faster each year, and not everything comes from the melt of the ice, and this change in each part of the world, because we have places that are rising 3 times faster than other ones. So the main reason that we have from the rising of the sea are two: the thermal expansion and the melt of the ice. So the thermal expansion is how the ocean takes all the heat that most of them we are producing and expand itself, because when gas, or in this case a liquid, gets more temperature, so increase the heat that they have, the movement of the particles is higher, so with that we are increasing the space that this needs to take. 1/3 of the sea level rising of the ocean is because this thermal changing. And then in the melt of the ice, we can understand that if we melt the ice, then the sea level will rise. No, because of course if we have ice, then it becomes water and grows, but not always. That's the point. Because if we are talking about the Arctic, it's already floating. So we have this piece of ice in the middle of the water. So as Archimedes says centuries ago, we can calculate the mass of the body that moves away of the water, blah, blah, blah. So this calculation can be also done in the Arctic, and this creates the idea and makes us understand how the melting of the North Pole doesn't change anything on the sea level rising or on the sea level measure, because this piece of ice was already there, and if it's ice or water, it's almost the same. But does change when we're talking about the ice in the continent. So continents that we know, for example, the ice from the different mountains on Earth, or the ice from the Antarctica, because the difference between the North Pole and the South Pole, so the Arctic and Antarctic, the Antarctic is a real continent. So it's a piece of land that is covered by ice. The other one is water that froze and became ice. So this is the main difference, and this is why it's so important that if we are losing ice from the Antarctica, we are rising the sea level. By the way, that means that the melt of the Arctic doesn't gonna change nothing, and we can stay quiet with that and do these new trade routes that we're gonna make, and this change on the economy from the Arctic and blah blah blah. No, the thing here is this is changing the albedo. This is an effect that we have that if we have all this ice covering the North Pole, the sun is gonna reflect almost the 70% of the heat. So the rays of sun that comes and see this white cover, you're gonna reflect the light and go back to the space. Instead, if we have more water, so a dark color and without this cover in ice, this heat is gonna be absorbed. So this is gonna heat it up a little bit more, the ocean. And this it's gonna change all the system. So heating up a little bit more until all the North Pole is melted. And then we'll have this albedo effect in the North Pole. So each time that the sun's gonna hit, it's gonna hit even more. And this is one of the problems of the melting of the Arctic. It's not the sea level rising, it's how this gonna catch and absorb the heat. And this doesn't finish there, because if we melt the water that we have in the continents and put it again on the ocean, and we say, okay, it's only 10 centimeters in more than a decade, it's not a real problem, but this water is not salty, so it's not the water that we have on the ocean. There is fresh water in most of the cases, and it's more fresh than the water we can have like ice in the ocean, because it has any percentage of salt in the continent. And this changes on the salty of the ocean gonna change the currents, because as we know, we have the movement of the currents are driven by the temperature and the salinity. These are the main things on oceanography. So how we calculate everything depends on how many particles of something there are inside, in this case salt, so different types of salt, and how much energy they have, so the temperature that we have. If we are changing one of them, we're changing all the currents that we have, so that can change all the patterns that we expect of the movement of the ocean. And this is way more dangerous than a few centimeters of water. And we need to explore really much how it's going to change in the future, because we don't really know. And this is one of the things that the researchers can go through and try to understand it. So now that we understand how the things can change, doesn't mean that the rising of a few centimeters doesn't going to change nothing. This can make the saltwater intrusions. So the rising that goes, this piece of water can entry in different aquifers or place that we have fresh water, so contaminating this fresh water with salty waters. Then can make the ghost forest, so rising and cover trees, so over water them or putting with the water with salt. So this is gonna kill off the trees and, for example, change the behavior on the mangroves jungles. So this is gonna be dangerous for the environments that are near to the coastline. And then we're gonna have the multi-effect. So this seems not too much until we have a storm, because if we have 10 centimeters more and then the storms hit, it's gonna be 10 centimeters higher and the rains will be a little bit higher. So everything is in the increasing of. I make a spoiler for a future video. That is a thing that happens also with the heating of the ocean. That is not only one thing, is everything together that increase the damage on the coastal zone. So we will be underwater in a few years. Short answer is no. We can expect from the 2050 that the rise of the sea level will be around 25 or 30 centimeters. So not that much, but still making changes on the coastline. So we will see how this evolves. If you want to check your city and how it's gonna affect you literally, you can check the link of the description, that you have an interactive map that you can play with it and see how everything gonna change. Of course, there is a lot of countries that depends on this, also islands and particular coastlines that are in danger for this movement of the coastlines, but still not changing everything, so not putting the city on the water. But as I said before, it's not only the water that rises, it's everything that comes with it. So I hope that you learned something today, that the sea level rising is not the problem itself, it's all the things that come with it. And if you like this video, you can share with more people, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.